Chris, when we're talking about competition, this industry, the marketplace pressure is very intense. So when we're looking at bringing the functions together, marketing, medical, and commercial, how can they work together, enabled by intelligence and data, to accelerate go-to-market readiness without sacrificing quality?
Yeah, this stumbles upon a major issue that's held brands back in bringing product to market quickly and effectively. And it's important that we use this as an opportunity to address it. Our perspective is that the underlying reason for there being differences in strategies between functions and vision is because they're measured differently. And so this age of AI and digitally fluent customers allows us to have the moment where we pause and think, well, how do we want to show up as a joined up commercial unit that's complete with medical colleagues, analytics colleagues, and yes, occasionally sales colleagues can be part of the same marketing conversations as well. So we're really focused on the end customer, whether that's a patient, an HCP, or a payer. It's fundamental that we get people together and set common goals. If we don't do that, then we see functions operating in different directions at different speed and often with different leaders. So now is a great opportunity to say, do we want to collapse functions together? Or do we want smaller, agile scrum teams that operate across functions? And really, the biggest thing that we need to do is just to allow data to flow across the functions. Marketing has become excellent at managing, owning, and analyzing marketing data. Medical teams, the same with medical data, sales teams, the same with their own data. And now it's much more informative for us to look at one single view of the customer, regardless of where the data comes from, and to tag that in ways that allows each of the different functions to use it. We believe that the closer we can bring functions together around shared metrics and shared ownership of data will really, really help propel us towards more engaging customer experiences.
And I think shared purpose too. I think if you went to any leader in any organization, or frankly, any employee at any organization, I think what you're going to find is that everybody can align around one thing, and that's the customer. And I think if you orient strategic discussions around that from a medical, from a commercial, from an R&D standpoint, it's very easy to align on what those common outcomes are that you're trying to drive. I think another added complexity to all of this is just the proliferation of new product releases within the global biotech landscape. It's nearly doubled in the last 10 years the amount of product releases that are getting released on an annual basis. And I think that means speed to market, speed to peak sales is immensely critical, which requires coordination across key leaders in the organization. How you run your clinical trials, how you anticipate to get approval needs to be directly connected with how you then hand that off to a commercial and marketing organization to drive sales. We all know that within pharma, you have a limited window to achieve a return on the billions of dollars that you're investing in R&D, and without coordination, that won't happen. I think what it also introduces is this idea of a brand strategy versus a portfolio strategy. When you have the exponential proliferation of products being released in market, fundamentally you will increase your exposure to different therapeutic areas. And if you continue to run your business as a global pharma company focused at the brand level, when you're managing, call it a dozen brands across 3 to 4 different therapeutic areas, you begin to create kind of a myopic view into how to create impact. Ultimately, if you're running a portfolio of brands and products, where you spend money and time in one takes money and time away from another. And if you're not creating a holistic strategy across all of your brands in a portfolio mindset, connected from an R&D, from a manufacturing and a commercial standpoint, then you're not creating the most impactful strategy that you can employ.
Do you feel like clients can be challenged to require a change in mindset in doing what you're talking about, where they're focusing on a brand versus the portfolio mindset?
That is definitely something that we are challenging our clients with every single day. I think in concept, it's easier than in practice. It requires a significant step change difference in, frankly, how organizations operate and how organizations are organized. Many of the clients we work with are organized at a brand level. And what I think the change required entails is a leadership mandate and a portfolio capability to be stood up so that every brand decision is considered within the context of the portfolio implications.
The scenario that you've described, Will, is absolutely how new startups build themselves for success straight away.
Yeah.
And so we see those features and those elements within many new biotech organizations and some of the single molecule organizations as well. What's important is that leading larger organizations have a look to their left and their right at other types of organizations and see what's driving their success. And there's enough evidence now to show that showing up as a single portfolio rather than multiple brands is going to deliver more consistent and higher valued messaging to customers. The more relevant we make the branding and the communication at a portfolio level, the more that customers will respect the pharma organization for showing up in a way that matters to them rather than matters to the individual brands.
It also, you'd mentioned a point in terms of kind of what scarcity drives. Scarcity drives innovation, and that's where a lot of these startups find their edge into the industry. We often look at these large biopharma companies, global biopharma companies, in a very monolithic way, when in reality it's a very dynamic business that's operating across many different markets, many different products, many different brands. And there's a lot to be said about learning from some of the kind of microcosms within that dynamic landscape. For example, the U.S. is typically seen as the revenue generator for most of these businesses. And what we typically find is that means that the U.S. and the North America market is trying to move forward and not have anybody else slow them down. But in some cases, we actually see where there are constrained markets, whether that be South America or APAC or whatever it may be, that constraint actually drives insight back to North America on how to operate more efficiently and more effectively. And it really starts to introduce this holistic concept of how you run a global organization from a marketing standpoint, from a capability standpoint, from a people and talent standpoint. What do you need to centralize at the global level that ensures you're doing things cost effectively and efficiently? But what do you then need to employ at the regional and local level so that you don't over dilute or over standardize the marketing messaging, so you can still meet the relevance and the unique needs of each market?
Chris and Will, I want you to talk a little bit about what your current roles are, if you've seen any evolution sort of in that field itself, and kind of what excites you about what you're doing. So Chris, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I love my role because I get to speak with leading pharmaceutical marketers every day to help understand where they've got challenges with what they're doing today and where they'd like to grow and move towards in the future. So this places me right at the epicenter of conversations around data, around skills, around process, around operating model, and really exciting conversation about the vision for marketing within the organization. And so the real work that I do every day is have conversations. For example, we've got our old way of building skills within the organization. Is that still relevant and current for this age of AI? And we look through their skills profiles and we're able to pinpoint where, for example, they might need strategic prompt engineering to support their strategic development. Or it might be looking at a large scale process like content development and recommending where we can build efficiencies into that by cutting out process steps or elevating the quality of the inputs as well as improving the outputs. So the role is multifaceted and I get to be in lots of really interesting conversations. And the ones that really excite me is when brands have got a big challenge. They're either launching into a new market or they've got a new competitor coming or there's a regulation change that's affecting the status quo in their treatment paradigm. These are really difficult conversations to have because they often force the organization to change. And that gets us into discussions around culture as well. Like, what is our employee value proposition? Or in real words, why would somebody want to work here? What's going to keep them here? So we get to partner with clients and help them to understand where marketing can move towards in its most exciting context, not where it could be to satisfy lines on a budget sheet. And that's where we get our real passion. It's from solving big challenges creatively with great minds using brilliant new skills to be able to solve these challenges faster and more effectively than others.
Yeah, so my role at Accenture is, I describe it as data technology analytics focused on the customer, focused on marketing, sales, and service. And The first 5, 6 years of my career were across many different industries. And it's funny, you would have told me 4 or 5 years ago that I'd be entirely focused on life sciences now. I probably would have laughed at you because I was naive to the amount of data that is available within the life sciences industry, particularly with healthcare providers. So in my role today, I really am a enabling capability lead when it comes to commercial analytics. How do we use information, data, analytics to inform and enable commercial strategy, as well as commercial customer experience technology? So marketing technology, sales technology, enterprise data technology. And I really see that as two pillars to then enabling holistic commercial strategy. I've spent my 10-year career working in data and analytics, and I find now that the programs and the projects and the clients that I'm most intrigued and have the most conviction in supporting are those where insights and strategy and insights and decision making are embedded into their operating model. I prefer less to go build static reporting in a way that we create it and we expect people to come. I think the most impact that we can drive is as data analysts, as technologists, are the industries where it's very difficult to kind of walk into a room of teams and or of team members and understand which one's the technologist, which one's the data analyst, but truly kind of an intersecting team across all of those capabilities.
So, how did you pull your experience outside life sciences into this industry and kind of leveraging, how you use data? What's the difference and kind of how are they drawing from those lessons outside of this industry?
Yeah, well, I think one industry that we see a lot of parallels with is consumer packaged goods, CPG, particularly as it pertains to that portfolio management approach that we were describing. CPGs are, have a long history of having to manage very large portfolios of products and assets and having to make portfolio-minded decisions. And I see that from a measurement standpoint as we look at holistic portfolio measurement strategy. There are a lot of parallels to take from how CPG manages their portfolio and how pharma should be managing their portfolio as well.
I think marketing measurement is something that is notoriously difficult across all industries as well. I bring a lot from my retail and direct-to-consumer experience, where there is much higher signal to correlation of marketing initiatives in top-line growth, and I try to apply that in pharma as well from a direct-to-consumer and really just from a value framework standpoint. So we recently helped a global biotech perform an analysis on their historical data to really understand that relationship between omni-channel engagement and the new-to-brand prescription writing behavior of their HCPs. And by looking at their historical data, we were able to build a very strong correlation between active HCPs, meaning they had engaged with one of their omni-channel channels in the last 3 months, and a 36% higher new-to-brand prescription writing behavior. Now, there's a lot of nuance within that. There's a lot of data that sits beneath it that needs to be unpacked that can drive things at a treatment and at a campaign level. But if you can fundamentally establish that value, which is something that has been long standardized in CPG and in retail, and bring that to the pharma space, you can have much more certainty as a leader that your marketers are focused on the right things. That then creates agency in their decision making. You then have to focus on their day-to-day less and more around kind of the overall strategic vision.